Tavien St Clair has the arm talent to be a special Ohio State quarterback.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a feel-good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Friday, April 26th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it. I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Joining us during today's show is Locked On's recruiting analyst, Brian Smith. Brian and I touch on the importance of St. Clair moving on to the Elite 11 finals, an offensive lineman from Michigan that might commit to the Buckeyes a week from today, and another running back that has received an offer from Carlos Locklyn. There's a lot of good stuff here, a lot of talented athletes to touch on today, and some of them will be Buckeyes very, very soon. And as we welcome in Brian Smith, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, we're in the midst of the NFL draft right now. This is going to be Friday's show, so Thursday, round one, got to hear a lot of names called. But then over the next 2 days, on Friday and Saturday, going to hear a lot more names called. And there's a guy that Ohio State, just as special as Marvin Harrison Jr. was for the Buckeyes, who was a first-round pick. Many people will also believe that Tavien St. Clair will also be that special quarterback once he gets to Columbus.
Run pass guy from the state of Ohio. He's physically matured a lot in the last 12 to 18 months. He went from a guy that I thought was okay to a guy that's a truly national recruit. I know that some of my brethren at 24/7 think he might be the best quarterback in the class. You know, that stuff's really subjective. Run pass can take off and make guys miss. Really good at the deep ball, has the arm strength that one would seek. And he's not a small guy either. Again, he's put on some weight. I don't know what he weighs now. He's kind of in that spurt where he's putting on some pounds, but he'll top out at over 200 pounds and be a guy that looks like a Power 5 quarterback.
When you think about that size you're talking about, and I immediately go to my mind of two quarterbacks that are freshmen at Ohio State currently that just got to campus in January, and Julian Sand and Aaron Noland. Two guys that are really, really talented, but the first thing you and I talk about all the time is that when a guy gets to campus, he has to physically mature to be ready to play at the high level of Ohio State. And that even goes for quarterbacks. Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, they have physically matured during their time period at Ohio State. And you can easily see from the time you get there until the 6-month mark, until the 12-month mark, it's easy to see the physical maturing that their body has done via the strength and conditioning program and the nutrition at Ohio State. Tavien St. Clair has impressed me, and his body's matured a lot quicker than I expected, which goes to show why he's able to make all the throws all over the field, especially making that deep ball look so easy.
Yeah, if you don't have the arm strength, it limits your ability because DBs aren't afraid to come up and crowd the line, and that also impacts your run game, and it impacts how often you get blitzed. It's just really important. There's certain physical tools that you cannot do without if you're going to maximize. Arm strength is one of them. The other thing that he does is he makes some really awkward throws look pretty natural, kind of like a shortstop or a guy that just whatever sport where you throw the ball and you have to do it in different weird angles. He can make that happen. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes. Let me be clear, but those kinds of traits are now common in how young men are getting trained. I think the off-platform throw is one of the most common words we hear with NFL commentators, and it's overused. But one of the pictures I saw of him recently was he was about half kilter over and throwing the ball sidearm at Elite 11. And I go to a bunch of those. I'm getting ready to go to another one in Atlanta. And to be honest with you, that's something they're teaching there too. Pass rush, avoiding the first guy, keeping your eyes down the field, moving in a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage or kicking out outside the tackle box, and then zipping a pass. He's natural at that. St. Clair is going to be a guy that will fit in Ohio State's offense that he could probably fit just about any, to be honest.
So when it comes to Ohio State's offense, we're used to the type of quarterback Ryan Day has used during his tenure at Ohio State. And even Dwayne Haskins, which wasn't somebody he recruited, he was still one that fit what Ryan Day wanted from a quarterback. A lot of people think with Chip Kelly now win, it'll be Ohio State's offense, but the quarterback will be more of a run pass option kind of guy. You'll see more of that. You'll see more quarterback runs. I think St. Clair fits that very well, Brian.
It's similar to a guy that took a lot of slack after he left Ohio State and played for the Bears, and I don't know what's going to happen with his career. That's what this reminds me of. Hopefully it goes better for him if St. Clair is able to make the NFL. But look, the NFL is a different animal. It's so much about post-snap read. You can't grade quarterbacks. I'm trying to do that with the NFL draft, and it's like, look, yeah, there's just no 100% on it, and that's why the NFL teams are always scratching their heads. Certain guys that go in the 5th round end up being Hall of Famers, and guys that were the first pick overall are out of the league in 4 years. It is what it is. College, you don't have to do that as much. With the RPO game, natural athleticism, and of course, Ohio State has a plethora of players that are really good around the signal caller. It's not as important. But Ryan Day and his offense are accelerated. They do a lot of that stuff too once the guy gets acclimated. So it can be really dynamic. Just has to get him through the system. And like everything else we talk about here, recruiting is everything. Then you develop, but you got to start with raw material. He's got all the traits you're looking for to be a big-time college player.
What is the importance of St. Clair winning the regional competition and then now making it to the Elite 11 finals?
For those that don't know, Elite 11 is the preeminent quarterback competition in the country. Me and just about every other person that will go to them every year would try to get in there and check it out and just see the kids because there's no hiding. They give us access right up to the edge of the field. We talk to the kids in between breaks, interview them before, after, all kinds of stuff. It's a blast. However, again, this is a long day with all kinds of throws from the pocket, outside the pocket. They mimic pass rush, not only completing the pass, but sometimes they want it high. It's about precision and accuracy above everything else. So him winning it tells me that they don't care who you are. They'll let it rip on terms of letting you know if you're doing good or not. I've seen guys go up and down really quick at these events. They wouldn't rank him where they did if he didn't do his job. So he's not just an athlete playing quarterback. They want to see accuracy from a traditional quarterback system, being out of the pocket first. And again, then they expand as the day goes on, and it's a long day. It's 4 hours or so of throwing and learning and all that. He does the right things to get that opportunity, and going to the finals is a big deal. This is how you build a recruiting class, and other recruits will pay attention. It will help Ohio State recruit.
It will help them recruit. I know we didn't put any receivers on the spreadsheet, Brian, before starting the show, but I think Ohio State may go after a couple more. With St. Clair making it to the Elite 11 finals, and we all know the receivers and the tight ends are looking and seeing what quarterbacks are going to be there, what guys are getting the invites or winning the regionals to go to the finals. What receivers do you think might be enticed to schedule an official visit to Ohio State now that St. Clair is really making a bigger name for himself?
I think anybody that they're after. I don't think they'll really expand their board much, but like Jamie French, et cetera, that everybody that they're interested in, they know what that means. Like French plays with a kid that is going to the Elite 11 finals too, committed to Florida State, Tramel Jones. They know what that means. They know what that's like. So every guy that they're in on, Ohio State sports not big at receiver. It doesn't have to be. They'll have a better chance. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. So it's just straightforward. Like you want to play with guys that can connect. You don't want to play with guys that, you're curious about, but not sure. St. Clair is one of those guys that's elite. I think he's conservatively one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the 25 class.
There is a young man for the state of Michigan, a really good offensive lineman that will be committing to a school a week from today. Will the Buckeyes be a school that he will commit to? We'll find out, and we'll talk to Brian about that next. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more. And the best service in Central Ohio. And guys, check this out. Billiards Plus carries grills that have up to 30-year warranties. That's right, a grill with a 30-year warranty. Everything you need for in-home and backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. They are family owned and operated. And when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus, visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brian, as I'm stuttering and trying to get the words out clearly, one thing I do know when I watch this guy play that is very, very clear, Gach can play. 6'5", 290-pound offensive lineman, plays a little guard, plays a little tackle. He can do it all. He pulls. When he gets his hands on you, Brian, you're not going anywhere. And one of the things I see when I watch him play, Brian, is that he finishes every block.
Yeah, he's a through-the-whistle guy. He's an old school Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Wisconsin kind of offensive lineman. I think he's better as a guard, but I don't think that's limited to that. He's a good enough athlete. He could at least play right tackle. It's difficult to say what's best for him because every system's a little different. You and I were discussing Michigan's offense, definitely not the same as the one in Columbus. Michigan is more pro style in terms of the run game than some other teams, really traditional, but they just don't have to throw it much because last year their schedule was a joke and they were so good up front. They just beat the crap out of people, and that's fine. Ohio State's done that some too, but I think for Ohio State to ascend back up, not saying they need all five guys, they need at least one or two more guys on their line that are just better run blockers and that can do things in short yardage to take pressure off the quarterback running or passing. It's not like Ohio State's short on running back talent, so you open a hole, good things will happen. I don't know where this kid's going to go. I would assume it's Michigan, but Ohio State's prioritized him, and he's a downhill power player, probably best at guard, but might be able to play tackle as well.
Now, think about him being best at guard, and currently right now at Ohio State, the top end, the starters, there's still a debate on who's going to be your center, who's going to be your right guard. The left guard spot's normally Donovan Jackson. That's set in stone. The guys behind them, though, the depth at Ohio State, you got some young guys that are working to get on the field, but you also got some guys that have been there for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, that really are not as strong at the interior of the offensive line play like you would expect. When I say all that, because offensive line play, it is a developmental position. It's going to take you a long time to get there. Do you see when Gach gets to college, wherever he goes, that he is a 2 or 3 year developer before he gets on the field?
If they just keep him at guard, it could be accelerated a little bit. If he's going to play tackle, I don't want to put a number on it. Offensive tackle is a different deal because every snap is a chance for your season to go sideways if that play goes wrong at tackle. And we're, of course, talking about the quarterback taking a blindside hit. Everything else goes up in smoke It's just the way football is.
Yeah.
It's a very high-risk
Yeah.
sport to begin with. There's no substituting keeping your quarterback healthy. That's why they have these ugly jerseys on in spring all year. Like, if you get near quarterback, some guys get yelled at, like literally get yelled at, and they didn't physically touch them. That's how important quarterback is, much to the dismay of defensive linemen, but it's true. So if he plays guard like at Ohio State or Michigan, do I think he would start as a freshman or sophomore? Maybe not. But like his third year and fourth year, he's a guy that should start at a major program and be a difference maker. That's kind of how I see it. If he starts as a redshirt freshman, it's a bonus. That's typical. The two positions I don't like to see anything besides junior, senior, fifth year, senior next to their name in the starting lineup is O-line and quarterback, because they're so mental, and especially with football, you make one mental error, again, that quarterback gets drilled. And it could be as simple as not making the right line call, or if he got the right line call and he didn't communicate right. There's so many integral parts that go to it. It's just experience matters.
It's very important, and I think very good for Buckeye fans to hear right now. Talk about quarterback and offensive line, getting a more experienced guy out there. You've mentioned it before while talking about Julian Sand potentially being a starter as a freshman, true freshman this year. I think he's good. He's really talented. But there's a big difference between a spring practice in Ohio Stadium, in the shoe, in front of 80,000 Buckeye fans, than it is when you're going to Happy Valley or the Big House, or even a regular Saturday afternoon game, a Big Ten game against Iowa, where it's 105,000, but you're still in front of Iowa fans and it's a regular season. That mental part is big. And I think sometimes, Brian, a lot of fans lose sight of how mentally tough it is to play the quarterback position and play offensive line.
Yeah, because the noise on the road, how you communicate, are you truly on the same page? Did you study the other team? All your physical traits are worthless if you're going the wrong direction. That's an old phrase that I've heard from a lot of guys. Lou Holtz used to talk about, doesn't matter how fast you are, if you're running right, you need to be running left. You got to have guys that are functional. And again, that goes back into it. Sure, strength conditioning is huge for especially O-linemen. There's a certain level of strength you got to get to, or it's not going to work. But you got to have the chemistry with understanding whether it's a zone, a gap play, is it a play you're going to be out in space on a screen. Coaches have to feel comfortable with you. And as you know, most coaches are really, really picky about that stuff to begin with. And that's why juniors, seniors play more. Coaches aren't usually the most fuzzy and happy kind of go lucky guys, especially at this level. But I don't think you're going to see any change with that. And it's why you got to consistently try to get like 4 linemen in every class. I'm a little concerned about Ohio State's line guy. I got one guy who's really good, but I don't know who they're going to get because they're going big game hunting for O-line. I don't know how many guys they lead for. That's probably the biggest concern I would have with this recruiting class. And, the portal might help them or something too. But there's a certain number you got to get to as well. It's very, very important.
So Gach, we've mentioned, is a Michigan kid. He, in his final, this is a graphic I saw from 247 Sports, the schools that he's considering that are in his final grouping: Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. And when I watch him play, I'm going to make a statement that I know a lot of people may not like, but when I watch him play, Brian, I think you may agree, he seems more of a Michigan or Wisconsin type of offensive lineman than a Michigan State or an Ohio State type offensive lineman, just more of the build and the type of play that he has. Now, I would love for him to be at Ohio State. I would absolutely love to bring his level of play and physicality and being a through-the-whistle type of guy that he is, as you said. But I do think just by watching him, it wouldn't shock me if Michigan or Wisconsin is a school that he goes to.
No, I mean, fit is a lot of it. And sometimes you're biased because you just root for a school. But not only is he's from Michigan. I'm guessing he grew up a Michigan fan. I don't know. But their scheme seems to fit him pretty good too. And I don't think Sharon's going to really mix up what they do. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And they don't have much of a path. Like Michigan, I think, is going to take a major step back offensively this year against any team that has a good front seven. I think they're going to struggle. Quarterback's talented, but I don't think he's very consistent. So they're going to rely on the run game even more. Their quarterback room's a little iffy. So it's going to be peculiar until they figure that part out. But the run game and how their offensive line works, this kid fits it to a T. Downhill, power, and I want to beat up on you.
Gach is a guy who is committing a week from today. There's another player that just got an offer from Ohio State who is currently committed to Oklahoma. Will the Buckeyes lure him from the Sooners? We'll talk about Jonathan Hatton Jr. next. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do, like play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You could even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Brian, it didn't take long while watching this young man's film to see that he is a true gamer and he has the real stuff you want from a running back at a big-time power school in the country. He's Jonathan Hatton Jr., 2026 kid, committed to Oklahoma on October 3rd of last year. Ohio State offered him on April 23rd. Alabama offered him on April 22nd. 6 foot, 205-pound guy, runs track. He's a sub-11 guy in the 100-meter dash. He has speed. He is physical. He has great vision. And I'm not surprised Ohio State offered him right now.
I watched his film, and it was interesting. It might be a little before your time. He reminds me a little bit of Robert Smith that played at Ohio State around 1990. NFL, he's done a lot of television stuff. Great guy. Long strider, does pretty well despite his length. Like, he's very long at the hip, meaning he's got long legs. Those guys tend to struggle in between the tackle box of getting the guys off their ankles and shins, but he does a pretty good job of balance. And when he strides out at that second level, like, okay, I've got a little opening here, it's time to hit the gas. He's got a nice little burst. With 2 more years of high school, I don't know what he runs yet. Like, he's not going to be running with some of the South Florida kids I'm so familiar with quite yet, but he's close, and he's got 2 more years of high school. So if you can be a guy that can be a pounder, and he's certainly a physical young man, and then you add in, okay, he's got at least, you can see the speed coming. With 2 more years, the upside is phenomenal. So I think he's an every down running back, and I think he's a kid playing where he does. He's in the greater San Antonio area, that he's used to some pretty good competition. This is a no-brainer. He'll be a 40 offer kid.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's very wise for Ohio State to offer him at this point in the cycle, because as his recruitment ramps up, and there have been numerous schools that have offered him between now and when he committed to Oklahoma, things are going to get crazy. Things are going to get wild, and that Ohio State's in the mix now, thinking about next spring practice season, or maybe he takes an unofficial to Ohio State for a big game in the fall. These are things that I think Ohio State right now, especially with Locklyn just now getting to campus, it's going to be a big deal that, hey, we got a new running backs coach. He likes you. He's offering you. And Locklyn already said he's big on building relationships. I think that's a great mix for Ohio State to potentially flip Hatton to the Buckeyes.
Yeah, they've got Locklyn, who's, in my opinion, the best all-around running back coach in the country, recruiting, coaching, acumen. He's a New Orleans guy, so he's familiar with Louisiana, Texas. It's not a hard sell. If Ohio State doesn't at least get him on campus a few times, I'd be surprised. If Locklyn's going after him, he's a very definitive guy in his approach, how he sends guys, to the league. If I remember right, 5 guys from Memphis at running back went to the NFL in some capacity. Memphis. Just saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's,
yeah.
It's he's just a tremendous teacher of the sport, and I think that's going to sell. So this will be one of his prime guys if he's after him already. He's already made that decision, and Locklyn's pretty difficult to at least keep out of the box completely. He'll get an official visit or something.
How difficult will it be for the Buckeyes to make this flip actually happen?
Well, running back recruiting is kind of weird because like Texas kids, A&M and Texas are going to play downhill football. They're going to be hard to beat for key running backs. Every time I'm going to tell you for like the top 1 or 2 guys, that's where I'm going to pick them, or Oklahoma every time. LSU recruits there, Georgia, etc. It's wild, but I'll still take those schools originally. Ohio State has been for about a decade the one school that's consistently just randomly got kids from Texas, though. Now that Sark's got going at Texas, A&M's got a real coach. That may change. Oklahoma's on the come up. It'll be a really unique challenge, but Ohio State's depth chart's not what it normally is at running back. It's kind of goofy right now. So perhaps that'll help. But watching this kid's film, I doubt he's really concerned about competition too. I have a feeling that he's got a lot of confidence in his abilities, and he should. He's very good.
Do you see any weaknesses when you see him play?
The only thing I was really curious about, and this is almost always the case, how many plays on his film show him in pass protection? Were there any? That's something we talk about. It's automatic until otherwise proven. Freshman running backs in college aren't bad at pass protection. They're horrific. And that's why they don't play a lot. It's just the way it is. They found a way to scheme around it with Tavien, but he wasn't no good pass protector as a freshman. They roll pocket. They do different things, tight ends, H-back. They did anything they could, so he wasn't the key guy in pass protection. They didn't want him anywhere near that. So I've told this story a million times. There's been a lot of guys that go and play. I was at a Notre Dame practice a long time ago when they had a freshman, Ohio State offered. He came out and everybody was around. They had everybody in the media there. They ran the outside linebacker blitz play, and it's just, whoever does it. And each guy went through. First play he did it, he got hit. It looked like a Mack truck hitting a gnat. I mean, he just got completely leveled. You can't have that. You can't have that.
No.
I mean, it's just how you lose. So everybody has to find their own way with it, but it's strength. It's kind of like O-line. Freshman O-line, I mean, even if they're a 5-star, generally don't have the power play after play to be effective. It's the same thing with running backs. A 240-pound guy running at you with you basically standing there, it's not a good combination anyhow, but you can't have like whoever the quarterback is this year for Ohio State, even one of those hits keeps them out. So the weakness is always the same. This kid too, he's a really good running back. Pass protection will take place once he gets on campus, wherever he goes in college.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I think back to Dallin Hayden's freshman year, and you mentioned it, I think on the show recently, what he did against Michigan, and he was good. But I remember guys that were coming after games and being like, he's not that good in pass pro. Not putting it in context that he's a true freshman out there playing who was supposed to be a backup out on the field, but all of a sudden they're like, well, he's not that good in pass pro. He shouldn't play. And I'm thinking, shouldn't that be expected? Like, should you expect these guys to not be good in pass pro freshmen? That's true.
He was fourth string.
Right.
He was fourth string to start the year for a reason. Ohio State just had that magical run of terrible injuries. Tavion's always hurt. It seems like it drives me nuts, but it's what it is. And then they just had other guys banged up too. And it's just like, man, sometimes it just doesn't work out. You try everything you can, but guys get banged up and you're what's next. So at the very least, and he was a good runner even as a freshman. I would imagine that there's a lot of opportunity for him. After a year or so, he got better and better. And of course, now he's in the portal, but I'd imagine most guys it's the same path. They didn't have to block in high school, man. They didn't have to do it. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Last thing here for you. This is one that I was thinking about James Peoples. We talked about him recently and thinking about freshmen that are incoming at Ohio State. Sam Williams-Dixon is really, really good, but of course, it's going to be a learning curve and maturing process. And now that he's in college, what do you think there's a scenario that he could be a special teams guy as a true freshman in Columbus?
They could use him in a variety of ways. I mean, sometimes they're gunners, sometimes they're guys that play in the middle. Maybe they have them make the snaps, like they called him for the punt. There's a million ways you could do it. Depends on his capacity above the shoulders, though, and what he wants to take on. Those guys generally think they should get the ball, even when they're a freshman. They're not. But that's just kind of how kids think. So it depends on his maturity. Physically, yeah, he's a really talented young man. doesn't mean that he's going to be able to adjust to Ohio State's offense, which again is a little more accelerated than some other collegiate offenses, especially now that they have the mad scientist coming over from UCLA. That offense will have all kinds of checks and stuff. It will not be friendly for freshmen. Just for future, I know Ohio State fans don't want to hear this. There will not be very many freshmen playing on their offense moving forward. There will not. Jeremiah is kind of an exception, but the playbook will eat up a lot of them. There's no fixing that. So I don't know what they're going to do to get him on the field, but that's a way to keep him happy. At least he's playing, because kids that don't play at all as freshmen leave. That's just, I mean, that's the nature of the business. And I don't think Ohio State or Oregon or anybody else can do anything about that. Kids have no patience. They have no patience. So they got to find a way to get him some kind of snaps, even if it's just some of the games that, against lesser programs. But another way to do it, special teams. I'll be surprised if he's not at least on kickoff or punt return or something.
Guys, that's Brian Smith. He's Locked On recruiting analyst. Love having him on the show. Definitely try to get him on next week to talk about Buckeye recruiting and some things that are going on. Maybe a player to commit. Brian and I will break it down right here on the show. You can follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. You can follow me on the same platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Tavien St Clair is good, and we'll look forward to do some big things